The emergency klaxons shrieked through the command center of the Zephyrian battleship. Nexus Prime as Admiral Korvac rushed toward the communication bay. His forearms moved in practice coordination, adjusting his ceremonial battle armor while his crimson eyes scanned the data streams flowing across holographic displays. Something had gone terribly wrong with the routine raid on the human colony of New Eden. Captain Vex stood rigid at the central console, her scaled skin pale with what could only be described as terror. The veteran officer had led countless successful raids across 17 star systems, but now she trembled like a newly hatched recruit facing their first combat simulation. "Report," Korvac commanded, his voice carrying the authority that had earned him respect across the entire Zephyrian fleet. Vex's mandibles clicked nervously before she spoke. "Admiral, we have successfully captured the human settlement as planned. Minimal resistance. The adult humans have been secured for processing into labor camps." "Then why do you look like you've seen a void wraith?" "What aren't you telling me?" The captain's eyes darted away from her superior's gaze. "Sir, during the sweep of the residential district, my troops encountered several smaller structures. They contained juvenile humans." Korvac's blood ran cold. In all his years commanding Zephyrian forces, he had learned one absolute rule that every civilized species in the galaxy followed without question. Children were off limits, always. The Galactic Accords established this principle not out of sentiment, but out of practical survival instinct. "Please tell me you left them alone," Korvac said, though the terror in Nex's posture already provided the answer. The raiding party was enthusiastic about exceeding quota targets. They assumed all humans were fair game for capture. "Sir, we have approximately 43 human juveniles in detention aboard Transport Vessel 7. The Admiral's roar shook the entire command center. Officers throughout the bridge froze at their stations, having never witnessed their composed leader lose control. Korvac's species had evolved from apex predators, but even his most fearsome battle cry paled compared to the primal fury that erupted from his throat. "You captured human children? Are you out of your mind?" Several junior officers actually stumbled backward from the force of his rage. Korvac's hand slammed against the nearest console, causing sparks to fly from overloaded circuits. The implications of this catastrophic mistake raced through his tactical mind like wildfire. "Do you have any comprehension of what you've done? Do any of you understand the difference between raiding an ordinary species and provoking humanity?" Captain Nex attempted to maintain her composure. "Sir, humans are classified as a minor species. Their technology is inferior to ours. Their military consists of primitive projectile weapons and basic spacecraft. Intelligence reports indicate they pose minimal threat to Zephyrian interests." "Intelligence reports?" Korvac repeated with bitter sarcasm. "Did your intelligence reports mention why 17 different alien civilizations have standing treaties specifically avoiding conflict with human colonies? Did they explain why the Vorthan Empire abandoned 3 entire star systems rather than engage human settlers? Did they tell you about the Kralix incident?" The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Even the newest recruits had heard whispered stories about Kralix, though most assumed they were exaggerated propaganda designed to frighten enemies of the Empire. "The Kralix were apex predators long before they developed space travel," Korvac continued, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "They conquered 47 worlds, enslaved 18 different species, and built an empire spanning 3 galactic sectors. They were larger than us, stronger than us, and had technology that made our best weapons look like children's toys." He activated a holographic display showing archived military records. Images of massive reptilian creatures filled the air, their savage features and intimidating size causing several officers to unconsciously step backward. The Kralix made one critical error. During a raid on a human research station, they captured 12 human children along with the adult scientists. They thought it was simply efficient resource gathering. The Admiral's eyes swept across his command staff, ensuring every officer understood the gravity of his words. Humanity's response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. They didn't send a formal protest through diplomatic channels. They didn't demand negotiations or prisoner exchanges. Within 72 hours, human warships appeared simultaneously at every major Krolix stronghold across 3 sectors. Captain Nex found her voice. But sir, humans had only achieved interstellar flight 50 years prior to that incident. Their technology was centuries behind Krolix capabilities. That's exactly what the Krolix believed, Korvac said grimly. They discovered that humans don't fight wars the same way other species do. When most civilizations engage in conflict, they follow established protocols. Formal declarations, military targets only, recognition of surrender, treatment of prisoners according to galactic law. The holographic display shifted to show tactical recordings from the Krolix conflict. Even decades later, the images remained difficult to watch. Human vessels, smaller and apparently less advanced than their opponents, swarmed around massive Krolix dreadnoughts like angry insects attacking giants. Humans call it total war, Korvac explained. When they perceive an existential threat to their young, they abandon every convention of civilized warfare. No target is off limits. No tactic is too extreme. No sacrifice is too great. The recordings showed human ships ramming into Krolix vessels, their crews dying in massive explosions that crippled enemy dreadnoughts. Other human craft fired continuously until their weapon systems overloaded and detonated, taking nearby enemies with them. They didn't just defeat the Krolix military, Korvac continued. They systematically destroyed every Krolix colony, space station, mining operation, and research facility. They hunted down Krolix refugees across the galaxy and eliminated them. In 18 months, humans reduced a civilization that had dominated 3 sectors for centuries to complete extinction. Several junior officers shifted uncomfortably. The concept of species-wide genocide was almost incomprehensible to most galactic civilizations, who fought wars over territory and resources but rarely sought complete annihilation of their enemies. But the children, Dex whispered. Surely they recovered their children first. Korvac's expression darkened further. The 12 human children died during the initial Krolix raid. The humans recovered their bodies during the first wave of attacks. Everything that happened afterward was pure vengeance. The bridge remained silent as officers processed this information. The idea that any species would continue fighting after achieving their primary objective violated every known principle of military strategy. Humans have a saying, Korvac said quietly. They call it crossing the Rubicon. It refers to taking an action that cannot be undone, committing to a path regardless of consequences. When humans believe their children are threatened, they cross every Rubicon simultaneously. He deactivated the holographic display and turned, his full attention to Captain. Vex, now explain to me how we're going to avoid the complete extinction of our species. Vex's confidence had completely evaporated. Admiral, surely you're exaggerating. Humans are still a minor power. They have perhaps 50 worlds compared to our 300. Those 50 worlds include Earth, where 4 billion humans live. Their industrial capacity exceeds ours by orders of magnitude, because they never developed the concept of adequate sufficiency. Humans always build more than they need, produce more than they can use, and stockpile resources as if perpetually preparing for the apocalypse. Korvac activated another display showing economic analysis reports. Our intelligence estimates that humans could convert their entire civilian infrastructure to military production within 6 months. Their merchant vessels can be weaponized in weeks. Their mining equipment doubles as siege weapons. Their children learn basic engineering principles that our university graduates struggle to master. The Admiral paused to let this information sink in before delivering the most disturbing revelation. Most importantly, humans reproduce faster than any other intelligent species in known space. They can replace population losses at rates that make prolonged warfare impossible for their enemies. The Krolix learned this too late. Every Krolix soldier they killed was replaced by 10 human volunteers seeking revenge. Captain Nex was now visibly shaking. What do you recommend, Admiral? We have exactly one option, Korvac said grimly. We return those children immediately, offer full reparations to their families, and pray to whatever deities might listen that humanity accepts our surrender before they discover our home worlds. Surrender? To humans? The alternative is extinction, not defeat, not subjugation, complete biological extinction of our entire species. As if summoned by their conversation, the communication officer's voice crackled through the bridge speakers. Admiral, we're receiving an incoming transmission from human space. Multiple sources. Ned, by their conversation, the communication officer's voice crackled through the bridge speakers. Admiral, we're receiving an incoming transmission from human space. Multiple sources. They're demanding immediate response. Korvac closed his eyes and took a deep breath. It had begun faster than even his worst-case scenarios predicted. Put it through. The main display flickered to life, showing a human female in military uniform. Her expression was calm, almost pleasant, but her eyes held the cold calculation of a natural predator evaluating prey. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Colonial Defense Force. We understand you have taken possession of some of our children. We would very much like to discuss their immediate return. The politeness of her tone made Korvac's blood freeze. In his experience, the most dangerous enemies were those who maintained courtesy while planning your destruction. Admiral Chun, I am Admiral Korvac of the Zephyrian Fleet. I assure you this was an unfortunate misunderstanding. We are prepared to return the children immediately and offer appropriate compensation. That's wonderful news, Admiral Korvac. We appreciate your cooperation. You have 12 hours to deliver them safely to neutral coordinates we're transmitting now. After that, we'll be forced to come collect them ourselves. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. 12 hours, Korvac muttered. At least they're giving us a chance to do this peacefully. The communication officer's voice interrupted again. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout human space. Multiple fleets are mobilizing simultaneously. How many ships? Sir, our long-range sensors are indicating. This can't be correct? Report. Over 2,000 human vessels have launched in the past 30 minutes. More are departing every minute. Sir, at current mobilization rates, they'll have 5,000 ships within 48 hours. Korvac stared at the tactical display in horror. The Zephyrian Empire's entire military consisted of 800 vessels spread across 300 worlds. Humanity was mobilizing a force large enough to simultaneously attack every Zephyrian holding in the galaxy. Send immediate orders to all fleet commanders, he commanded. Full military alert. Begin evacuation protocols for all civilian populations. And get me a direct line to the Galactic Council. We're going to need every ally we can find. As his officers rushed to carry out these orders, Admiral Korvac stood alone at the center of his command bridge, watching the tactical display update with new human ship movements. For the first time in his distinguished military career, he found himself praying that his enemy would accept his surrender. The alternative was too horrifying to contemplate. The Galactic Council's emergency session convened in record time, with representatives from 47 different species materializing through holographic projection within the massive crystalline chamber orbiting the neutral world of Axiom. Prime, Ambassador Korvac stood at the center podium, his ceremonial armor replaced by the simple robes of supplication traditionally worn by those seeking the Council's protection. High Chancellor Vexstar of the Altarian Collective leaned forward in her floating chair, her gossamer wings shimmering with barely contained agitation. As the senior member of the Council, she had witnessed countless conflicts over her 400-year lifespan, but never had she seen a representative of a major galactic power appear before them in such obvious terror. Admiral Korvac, she began, her melodic voice carrying across the chamber. Your request for emergency mediation has been noted. However, the preliminary reports we've received suggest this matter involves a simple prisoner exchange. Surely your military is capable of handling such routine negotiations without Council intervention. Korvac's forearms trembled as he activated the holographic projector at his station. Honored Chancellor, with respect, this is far from routine. We have committed what humans consider the ultimate act of war. My species requires immediate protection under the Galactic Accords for threatened civilizations. A wave of surprised murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. The Threatened Civilizations Clause had been invoked only 3 times in galactic history, each instance involving species facing complete extinction from natural disasters or cosmic phenomena. Representative Thokmar of the Bruthan hegemony laughed loudly, his massive frame causing his floating platform to wobble. You're requesting protection from humans? Those hairless primates who discovered fire only yesterday? Admiral, perhaps you've been sampling too much fermented blood wine. Several other delegates joined in the laughter, their various forms of amusement creating a cacophony of clicks, chirps, and guttural sounds that echoed through the chamber. Korvac waited patiently for the noise to subside before activating his historical data display. Delegates, I present the complete military records of the Kralix-human conflict, including previously classified intelligence reports from multiple species who observed the war. The chamber fell silent as the devastating images filled the air above them. Even the most warlike species among the delegates watched in stunned silence as human forces systematically annihilated the Kralix Empire with ruthless efficiency. The Kralix Empire controlled 3 galactic sectors, Korvac explained. Their military technology was centuries ahead of human capabilities. Their physical attributes made them superior to humans in every measurable category. They possessed over 2,000 advanced warships and had never suffered a significant military defeat. Chancellor Vextar studied the tactical displays with growing unease. These records show total destruction of military and civilian targets. Such tactics violate numerous galactic war conventions. Humans don't recognize galactic war conventions when their children are threatened, Korvac replied. They operate under their own code of conduct, which includes concepts like scorched earth and mutually assured destruction. They will sacrifice their entire civilization to ensure their offspring survive. Representative Kilthara of the Crystalline Dominion projected her thoughts directly into the translation matrix. Surely this is exaggerated propaganda. No rational species would risk extinction over such limited casualties. Humans aren't rational when it comes to their young, Korvac said grimly. Their evolutionary psychology treats threats to children as existential threats to their entire species. They cannot distinguish between an attack on 12 children and an attack designed to wipe out humanity completely. The Admiral activated another series of displays showing human, biological and psychological profiles compiled by Zephyrian intelligence over decades of observation. Humans evolved as persistence, hunters on a death world. Their planet regularly experiences mass extinction events, forcing them to develop survival strategies that other species would consider insane. They've survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and global plagues that would have destroyed most civilizations. Representative Mordek of the Silicon Confederation accessed his own species' files on human behavioral patterns. Our trade negotiations with humans have always proceeded normally. They seem capable of reasonable discourse and compromise. That's because you've never threatened their children, Korvac replied. In normal circumstances, humans are extraordinarily cooperative and peaceful. They form alliances easily, honor their agreements, and prefer diplomatic solutions to most conflicts. But they have a psychological trigger that completely overrides their rational thinking. He highlighted specific sections of the Kralix War recordings, showing human civilian populations volunteering for military service at unprecedented rates once. News of the captured children spread through their communication networks. Within 48 hours of learning about the Kralix incident, human civilian enrollment in military forces increased by 3,000%. Parents abandoned their jobs to join the fight. Children barely old enough to work took positions in weapons factories. Elderly humans past their normal life expectancy demanded combat assignments. Chancellor Vexstar studied population data from human colonies during the conflict period. These numbers suggest their entire civilization converted to military production almost overnight. Humans have a saying, it takes a village to raise a child, when their children are threatened. The entire village becomes a weapons factory. Their industrial capacity during the Galactic War exceeded their peacetime production by orders of magnitude because they stopped manufacturing everything except military equipment. Representative Thokmar was no longer laughing. As a military strategist himself, he recognized the implications of total societal mobilization. What you're describing would require unprecedented coordination and discipline. Most species can't maintain such focus for more than a few months. The Galactic War lasted 18 months, Korvac said quietly. Human resolve never wavered. If anything, it intensified as casualties mounted. They treated every fallen soldier as another child who would never return home, which only strengthened their determination. The chamber remained silent as delegates processed this information. Several species began accessing their own intelligence files on human behavior, searching for any data that might contradict Korvac's claims. There's something else, the Admiral continued. Humans possess technological capabilities that they deliberately conceal during peacetime. They're murk. The neutral meeting point at Kepler Station had never hosted such a tense gathering. Admiral Korvac stood in the main docking bay alongside the 43 human children his forces had captured, each child accompanied by medical personnel to ensure their well-being during transport. The Zephyrian leader's ceremonial armor had been replaced with simple white robes, the traditional garb of surrender in galactic diplomatic protocol. The children themselves seemed remarkably calm considering their circumstances. The youngest appeared to be perhaps 5 human years old, while the oldest looked to be approaching adolescence. They spoke quietly among themselves in their native language, occasionally glancing at the towering alien figures with more curiosity than fear. "Admiral," Captain Vex whispered urgently, "human vessels are approaching the station. Multiple configurations, including some ship designs not in our tactical databases." Through the transparent aluminum viewing ports, Korvac could see the approaching human fleet. What struck him immediately was the diversity of the vessels. Standard military ships flew alongside converted civilian craft, their hulls bristling with hastily mounted weapons. Massive cargo vessels had been transformed into troop carriers, while sleek exploration ships now sported sensor arrays capable of detecting threats across multiple star systems. "They brought everything," he muttered in amazement. "Military, civilian, commercial research vessels. They've turned their entire space infrastructure into a war machine." The lead human ship was unlike anything in Zephyrian tactical files. It appeared to be a fusion of military destroyer and civilian passenger liner, with weapon mounts installed alongside what looked like medical facilities and educational centers. Even their warships were designed to protect families, the docking sequence completed with mechanical precision, and the airlock sealed with a soft hiss. Admiral Sarah Chun stepped through the portal, followed by a diverse team of human officials, medical personnel, and what appeared to be several of the children's parents. Korvac had studied human anatomy extensively, but meeting them in person revealed details that intelligence reports had missed. Despite being smaller than most Zephyrian adults, the humans moved with predatory grace that spoke of evolutionary refinement. Their eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, assessing threats and escape routes with unconscious efficiency. Admiral Chun approached Korvac directly, her expression professionally neutral but her body language radiating barely controlled tension. "Admiral Korvac, thank you for honoring our agreement to meet here. Admiral Chun, I want to personally apologize for the actions of my forces. This was never intended to be an attack on human children. We were unaware of the cultural significance of youth in human society." Chun's eyes briefly flicked to the children before returning to Korvac's face. "Cultural significance is one way to phrase it. We prefer to think of it as basic survival instinct." The human parents had moved immediately to their children, conducting rapid medical examinations while speaking in soothing tones. Korvac noticed that even during this emotional reunion, several parents maintained constant awareness of their surroundings, their hands positioned near concealed weapons. I must ask, Chun continued, whether this incident represents official Zephyrian policy regarding human settlements, or if it was an unauthorized action by overzealous field commanders. Korvac recognized the critical nature of this question. His answer would determine whether humanity viewed this as a criminal act by rogue elements or an act of war by the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral, this was completely unauthorized. Captain Nex exceeded her operational parameters and violated explicit Zephyrian military doctrine regarding non-combatant populations. She has been relieved of command and will face full military tribunal. That's reassuring, Shun replied, though her tone suggested skepticism. However, I'm curious about your military doctrine. Do Zephyrian forces regularly raid civilian populations for forced labor? The question struck directly at the moral foundation of Zephyrian expansion policy. Korvac found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending practices that now seemed barbaric when viewed through human ethical standards. Our operations typically target adult populations on contested worlds. We relocate them to labor settlements where they can contribute to imperial development projects. In exchange, they receive protection, housing, and sustenance. Slavery, Chun said simply. We prefer the term productive relocation. I'm sure you do. The conversation was interrupted by one of the human medical officers approaching Chun with a preliminary health report. The woman spoke quickly in English, her words accompanied by aggressive hand gestures that transcended language barriers. Chun's expression darkened as she listened to the medical report. Dr. Martinez indicates that several children show signs of significant psychological trauma. Apparently, your forces used interrogation techniques designed for adult prisoners. Korvac felt his stomach clench. He had specifically ordered that the children be treated as honored guests, but military protocols weren't designed for handling juvenile captives. His forces had probably applied standard prisoner processing procedures without considering the psychological impact on young minds. Admiral Chun, I assure you this was unintentional. Our personnel have no training in handling human children. That much is obvious. Chun gestured to one of her companions, an elderly human man with graying hair and intelligent eyes. This is Dr. Richard Hammond, our chief xenopsychologist. He studied alien treatment of human children and has some observations he'd like to share. Dr. Hammond stepped forward, his manner more academic than military. Admiral Korvac, we've encountered this situation before with other species. The psychological development of human children is uniquely vulnerable to certain types of stress that other species consider routine. I'm not familiar with human child psychology, Korvac admitted. Human children form intense emotional bonds with their parents and communities. Separation from these bonds, even temporarily, can cause permanent psychological damage. Additionally, human children have vivid imaginations that can transform minor threats into existential terror. The doctor activated a portable holographic display showing brain scans and psychological assessment data. Several of your prisoners are already showing symptoms of what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. Without immediate intervention, these children may suffer lifelong emotional difficulties. Korvac studied the medical data with growing horror. The Zephyrian military had protocols for minimizing physical damage to prisoners, but psychological harm had never been a consideration. Most alien species that reached interstellar development had evolved emotional resilience that made them resistant to temporary captivity. What kind of intervention do they require? Immediate reunion with family units, familiar environment restoration, and extensive therapeutic treatment. Some may require medication to address chemical imbalances caused by extreme stress. Admiral Chun stepped closer to Korvac, her voice dropping to a more personal tone. Admiral, I need you to understand something about human psychology. When we see our children suffering, we don't think about diplomatic solutions or proportional responses. We think about eliminating the source of that suffering permanently. I'm beginning to appreciate the Complexity of human protective instincts. The fleet currently surrounding this station represents approximately 40% of active human military capability. The remaining 60% is being held in reserve pending the outcome of this meeting. Korvac's tactical mind immediately grasped the implications. Humanity was negotiating from a position of overwhelming strength while maintaining significant strategic reserves. They could annihilate the Zephyrian Empire immediately if they chose, but were offering diplomacy instead. What are your terms for resolving this incident peacefully? Tune activated her own holographic display, showing a detailed diplomatic proposal that had clearly been prepared well in advance. Full medical treatment for all affected children, provided by human specialists at your expense. Compensation to families for psychological trauma suffered by their children. Formal guarantee that Zephyrian forces will never again target human settlements or take human prisoners. These terms are entirely reasonable. The Zephyrian Empire accepts your conditions without reservation. I'm not finished, Chun continued calmly. We also require establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our species, including exchange of ambassadors and regular communication protocols. Additionally, we want joint military exercises designed to prevent future misunderstandings. Korvac was surprised by the constructive nature of human demands. Most species would have required massive territorial concessions or technological transfers as compensation for such an incident. You're not demanding reparations in the form of territory or resources? Admiral, we're not interested in expanding into Zephyrian space. We have more than enough worlds to develop. What we want is assurance that this situation never recurs with any human settlement anywhere in the galaxy. Dr. Hammond added his own perspective. From a psychological standpoint, humans require certainty regarding threats to their offspring. Ongoing anxiety about potential future attacks would be almost as damaging as actual attacks.